Hello, this is City Councilor Matt Allard. I'm starting today's meeting of the Real Community Committee. Alors, j'aimerais commencer la rencontre du comité réel d'aujourd'hui. Alors, premièrement, j'aimerais reconnaître que Winnipeg est situé sur le territoire visé par le traité numéro 1, le berceau et territoire traditionnel des peuples Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Ininu, Cri et Dakota, et sur les terres ancestrales nationales des Métis de la Rivière-Rouge. Notre eau potable provient de la Première Nation Shoal Lake numéro 40, qui est située sur le territoire visé par le traité numéro 3. And so I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Ininu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from the Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory. With that, Madam Clerk, I believe we need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, somebody want to move that?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried. I think the tradition here is to recognize those at the table. My apologies, I was remiss in not doing that. So I'm joined by Councillor Marcus Chambers, St. Norbert Ward, and by Councillor Brian Mays, Councillor St. Vital Ward. And, well, we are the best community committee, are we not?
We are.
Yeah. And members of the public service, Madam Clerk, and thank you for being here today. With that, we have the minutes. Madam Clerk, what's next?
Now we have our delegations. So our first up is to come speak to report number 3, and we have Jared Carrington. We'll also call down a few at the same time because they're speaking to the same topic. Jennifer Juricity and Russell Creepart.
Okay, welcome. Please make your way to the microphone.
Is Jared remote? I don't see him in the gallery.
Don't have him on Zoom.
Okay.
There's some familiar faces.
Morning, councillors.
Morning.
Morning, City Winnipeg staff. I've got a flash drive here which has the same information that you've got on. Is it now a good time to put this in and just...
Madam Clerk?
Yep, that's fine.
I don't know if we want to start with questions or if you want just a brief synopsis of...
Yeah, normally we give you 10 minutes,
Okay.
and then there may be questions from my colleagues.
Is Jared Carrington with you this morning, or?
Jared Carrington is not with us this morning.
Okay, so it's Jennifer and Russell.
I'm replacing Jennifer,
Oh.
sorry.
For not being the chair, then I have a little bit more time for various.
We can all relate to that.
This is my... Sorry, I'm just getting used to a setup here that I'm not familiar with. Okay.
I'm reading a long dead French philosopher. Can find his name.
Romain Rolland. I should read some
Michel
Romain
something.
Rolland sometime.
Which one?
Romain Rolland.
Okay.
More of a novelist than a philosopher. A biographer.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to review?
Yes.
Does this make sense? Okay.
Please go ahead.
So we're looking
Could
at...
stand at the lectern, though, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Excellent use of the word lectern, Councillor Chambers.
We're looking at a piece of property on the north side of Provencher. I think we've all seen this in the past in previous iterations, but on the north side of Provencher at the intersection, just inside the intersection of Provencher and St. Joseph Street. It's a rendering of the first, so the building that we see as the main focus of the rendering to the left is an existing condominium building. Just in terms of context plan right here, can you all see the cursor? So that's really, that's our site. So Provencher, and this is St. Joseph running north, just adjacent to our site. Pardon me?
To the east of it.
We're to the west of St. Joseph.
Yeah, St. Joseph is to the
Yes,
east of
yes,
you.
yeah. St. Joseph is to the east. We've got a landscaping parking management plan. I'm just going to run briefly through the building. We've got a 9-story, it's a mixed-use building with commercial at grade, office on second floor, where the residential also begins, all the way up to floor 9. From floors 3 to floor 9, it's set back off of the parameters, the lot line parameters that the commercial is existing on. But we're looking here at a parking garage, ramp down the middle from the back alley, and within that parking garage, under grade, we've got secure bike storage for 60 bicycles. If we come back to the main floor, so page down is Provencher, so we're looking at the two wheel-like things in the bottom right of that image are trees. We've got commercial to the sidewalk with inset doorways to give articulation off of the sidewalk to add scale to the pedestrian environment. And to the right-hand side, the very right-hand side, we've got our lobby space for the residential tenants. And we're showing a small kind of cafe outdoor seating for what is proposed as a restaurant or a cafe in the inset right off of the sidewalk. Alley access on the top of the page to the parking and building services. The top left, we've got our garbage collection, ramp to the middle, and top right, our transformer, CSTE box, and generator for the building. As we move up, we lose the site in terms of this as a drawing, but to the bottom edge of the page, a commercial office, and then to the top of the page, the beginning of the residential suites. That we'll see as I just click through the building continue. This is floor 3. So the building itself off of Provencher takes a little bit of a step back just to give a little bit more human scale to the street. Amenity space to the bottom right for the building. And then as we go up the building, this is levels 4 to 6, a mix of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, all the way up to floor 9, which is a penthouse suite, which again steps a little bit further back from the residential floors below. And this is where the 3-bedroom suites are, which is a requirement for this project to move forward, just in dialogue with the city in previous iterations of what we were talking about to get to this point. If we look at the building elevation, we can see this is the elevation that the rendering was based off of on the first page and how it appears from the street. So again, building to the left-hand side of the rendering is the existing condominium building. We've had to step back our building from that east facade because of existing windows. Rear elevation drawing, and then the rear elevation where we continue the penthouse floor, that difference in material and tone around to the back side of the building. And here in the bottom right, we can see where the Moloch-like, the buried garbage containers exist on the site. Hidden in the bottom left is the transformer and the generator and the CSTE box.
And the what?
CSTE box. Oh, I knew you were going to do this. CST consumer.
I don't remember.
See electrical. The green electrical box.
Okay. I understand that. Thank you.
I was practicing on the way here.
Customer service terminal electrical.
That's what it is.
Okay. I have strong feelings about acronyms. Thank you for recognizing that.
This is the elevation that's between. There's a little bit of an outline of a building that we can see in there. That's the outline of the building that exists to the west of our site. This is the outline of the building on the east facade, right? So there's still a couple of lots. The reason why it's a blank facade, there's still a couple of lots that will likely end up with a project like this. So we need to maintain that as a solid wall just for fire separation between our lot and what the future of that lot will be. Again, just a little bit of context, a couple of aerial shots. This is showing what's built up on that block. And then we move down into the pedestrian realm, right? So the top right image, that's the building entry and that area that was described as a little inset area for a cafe. Above Provencher, there's a balcony that's accessible from the commercial suite that's at second floor. and just a couple of other vantage points that describe the pedestrian level and the new trees that are part of the site. Just to contextualize what we're looking at in terms of that street edge, again, existing building that's sort of rendered whited out, and just looking at the consistency of the underside of that awning and how we're trying to find those datum points in what we're doing. The arches basically spring from the same point that those awnings live in the public realm. And another vantage point, just showing context. Night shot, looking at this at dusk. And then, in part of our previous work, the view to the clock tower was quite important in this. So we've maintained the request that a view from the bridge to the clock tower is important, and that's what we're showing in the final couple of renderings. So the clock tower in the background has got a little red circle around it. And likewise, looking at our proposition here with the existing context with that clock tower in the background. And that's really describing the building. Susan, I don't know if you want to go through some of just the street here.
Absolutely. So with regards to the street, we've taken the approach, first of all, dealing with the street trees. The street trees, the owner is paying for those street trees. However, the design and implementation, the construction, is through a city contract that is currently underway. It's under construction right now. So we've got the trees going in. My understanding from speaking to the landscape architect on that project, that those trees will be hackberry. So there's 2 hackberry trees going in silvicels, so they will have a very strong chance of survival. And then along the building frontage, we have opted for planters, which you can see an image of them in the bottom right-hand corner of that sheet that's up. Those planters are about 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter, about 3 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall, and they will have seasonal displays in them, and they define all the building entrances. So we have that green display at a higher level, knowing that along the street, anything at grade tends to not survive. So that is what we're proposing along there. It also gives that more Paris feel, in keeping with the architecture of the building. And then if there's any questions with regards to parking, we can go through parking as well. We've got a minute. We've got 91 stalls, 65 physical and 26 car share. And we've got 60 bike parking indoor, which Russell had mentioned, and it's all secure indoor. Plus, we've got 8 outdoor bike parking spaces, so 68 in total. And the 8 are along the frontage at every single building entrance, at every single commercial retail unit entrance. So we've got 2 around the main building entrance and then 1 at each of the other ones. So we've got a total of 4 bike racks or 8 bike parking stalls for customers. And that's it. If there's any questions from either one of us?
Yeah, you mentioned the planting of trees.
Yes.
What size caliper are you looking at?
I'm not sure, just because that's part of the city contract. I know that I'm hoping they're larger because anything really small tends to get ideally 75 millimeter. But again, I'm not the landscape architect on that project, so that is something that Dillon Consulting and HTFC are the consultants on that one.
Okay.
Can you tell us how much the contract is for the trees?
$40,000, I think, is what, in that range, was what was paid by the, yeah.
And most of that's because of the silvicels? Or the
Probably.
Tree wells?
Probably.
Yeah.
And the tree grates and everything around it.
I see hackberry is labeled as a native tree in Canada.
Yep.
Is the berry edible or not edible?
I'm not certain, to be honest, Councillor Lard.
Okay. And I did not prompt my colleague on the caliper question. It is something we talk about around here.
Yes.
Also, go ahead, Councilor James.
One question with regards to capacity and parking and things like that. Are you planning to do any car sharing, like Peg City Co-op?
Absolutely, absolutely. And all the documents have been submitted and all of the agreements have been completed. So yeah, there's 2 car share stalls, which is the equivalent of 26 parking stalls. And they are located at the northeast corner of the surface parking lot area so that the community can also benefit from this.
Those agreements, in terms of the submission for building plan, those agreements have to be submitted with the package for building plan. So it becomes part of our package moving forward with the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
According to the Government of Canada, the fruits are edible.
Well, thank you, Councillor Lard.
Yeah. Other questions? For my colleagues, well, and I guess for me too, would you mind going back to the image that shows exactly where the building is going to be? So Google Maps isn't really great with that.
No, Google Maps is
You're good?
working for me.
Yeah.
So the property directly to the east of you that abuts St. Joseph, there's potential for development there? That's not,
That's not part of this.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
not part of our submission, but there seems to be quite a bit of potential for development there, yes.
well, when I look on, I guess this is Microsoft Bing, there looks to be a building there, but when I go on Google Maps, it's cleared out property. So this looks like it's actually more current than the
Well, I
other.
think currently there would be cars parked on it.
Well,
Some
Yeah,
cars
there are
parked on it.
cars parked on it right now.
that's what this one
Right.
represents. But-
Yeah, and then there's another building just adjacent to I guess the industrial lot with parked cars on it.
Yeah.
And then it's your project.
There's 2 buildings on this site that have to be.
Yeah, there's 2 buildings on our site, 2 small buildings
Yeah.
to the west portion of our site that will need to come down.
Right.
Okay.
So the large empty lot and the 2 buildings.
That's exactly, yes.
The west, the large empty lot.
That's
Okay.
right.
I guess it's these two.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm pleased to see so many public amenities. I don't think I've ever seen 2 trees planted in a public boulevard from a private development, so thank you to the proponent for that. I know that during discussions, that was offered, as well as 2 car share spots, so that's great for the neighborhood. No, yeah. There'll be impacted trees.
Pardon me?
My colleague was pointing at trees, I guess, that would be impacted, which is, I guess, probably part of the discussion as to why we're planting new trees.
Probably. I know that Tillin, they've already removed those trees. I was just down there. They're constructing the whole sidewalk in 2 pieces adjacent to the curb first, and then they're going to move and do the portion adjacent to where the building will be.
Yeah, we try to plant trees here. I have no further questions. I've had the opportunity to review the plan, so thank
Great.
you very much for the information.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks. Madam Clerk?
So-
Nope. Did you have more questions?
Well, if there's any amendments, we should.
Okay. Are there any more presentations about this particular item today in the
We do.
gallery or online?
We do have another delegate that has registered who will be coming on with Zoom.
Okay.
That's me, actually, sorry.
Oh, we
Madam
have
Clerk.
Walter
Yes.
Kleinschmidt.
Oh, Walter, oh, I didn't know Walter was on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're not representing Walter Klein?
No, I'm not. I thought she was talking about me.
Speaks for
Okay.
This is not Walter.
Right.
Walter's
so-
great.
So, yes, my colleague was proposing perhaps we would deal with the item right away. I don't know, is there, do we want to hear from Walter first? So we
Yeah,
can deal
let's
with the
hear from
item?
Walter first, if you don't mind.
Councillor Mays, are you okay?
Either having a seat on the bench or go
Okay.
back in the gallery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do you know if Walter would be ready?
Yep, Walter, I've asked you to unmute. If you can also turn on your camera.
And Walter,
Okay.
this is not a strategy to have you off guard or anything like that.
No, other than you're very much on time or ahead of my expected schedule, so, but I am ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. somehow we weren't asked whether we were for or against a project in the application or for information. So I'd like to please initiate my submission as really for information, because the information that we have seen came in rather late. And my primary concern and question was going to be sightlines to the city hall for obvious reasons, for those that know me and have heard me before. And that was resolved sometime between midnight and this morning when I saw today's handout from Jennifer Giolositi, which was not on the website yesterday afternoon. So the concerns I want to raise is there was some consultation of which I participated, I was invited to by Entreprise Riel, and we met at that time Mr. Jared Carrington and others from his firm, and he met a couple of people, including Entreprise Joseph Constant, a retailer, myself, a couple other people from the community, and we had a conversation and emphasized some of the points that we wanted, and in particularly the positives of the previous submission, which have been carried in terms. I welcome the retail designation on the ground floor. I hope that, in fact, it will be retail and not service commercial, which brings very little, if any, traffic, and usually inevitably brings curtains in the windows, which is against the PDO, but then the PDO is not necessarily observed. And in that context, I would like to bring to the attention of the committee that after many, many months of deliberation, over 200 people's participation, a PDO was settled, which did limit the height of the building on that side of Provencher Street to 80 feet. And the previous applicant came in with 90 feet. So the first application under the PDO was a 90-foot, a 10-foot extension to the regulation. And watching developers will, through the profit motive, will always add as much as they can beyond the limits. And it already added 10 feet, which was objected to quite universally by more than one delegate. So I'd like to raise that concern. I would like to make it to the conscience of the committee that if we allow those rules to be changed so readily and so, I would say, recklessly, because we know that becomes a new standard and a new prerogative or a new precedent for the future. Then the next person will say, oh, if Carrington got 90 feet, I want 100 feet right on the corner block because my building is even more significant. It's cornerstone on 2 streets. And there we go again on things that the public often criticizes as rampant growth that was not expected and not planned for and not agreed to at the beginning. So I am very much concerned at that. I'm not going to march on the street and stand in front of the Caterpillar, but I do believe the committee owes it to the community to really examine that point and understand why. I'm glad they did not put the rationale of the last time, which was not logical. It's a beautiful building. I don't want to change the profile. And I do recognize that there's a setback on the top floor, which doesn't make it in your face when you're standing on the sidewalk. But that is a concern that prevails, in which I do not want to be overlooked. I also noticed that the bilingual signage is recommended. I'll repeat my comment, which I often say. I find it disappointing that the renderings we see do not show, and I had suggested that be done, show where signage will go and how it will be incorporated to both respect the aesthetic of the building, which over my many years of being in this kind of situation, developers, owners, and tenants almost destroy the facade of buildings with signage, which was not anticipated, was not built into the facade. And I would still urge the architect and maybe the environmental consultant in terms of Susan to say, look, let's design where the sign box go, provide the power to the sign boxes or to the signing structure, making sure that as the tenants come in and go, and there's a turnover of retail tenants, inevitably, the building does not deteriorate in quality and visibility. So that, I think, is an advice I give sincerely to the owner, not to the city. I'm surprised the city does not ask for signage, because they got a strong signage set of definitions. But I think this is something that's always lacking on the rendering, because nobody wants to commit themselves until they know the tenants. But I think it's 9 times out of 10 creates a problem and an oversight. And I'm also surprised that in these few years after the last submission, and so many years into it, there's no attempt for green roof treatment at the second level, where you've got a beautiful terrace, which, if it had been trimmed with boxed greenery, as well as on the top floor, would be less visible. But we really add an element and be a first step in the direction of the future that almost every other city in the Western world has adopted, and in the Far East as well, very aggressively, which is Winnipeg. I know it has a tougher winter than most of the examples I would refer to, but I think it's a challenge that the consultant in that domain should really add a touch, so that we have that additional element, which adds to the beauty, to the environment, to the shading factor. It's good to have a couple of trees. A shade on a sidewalk will reduce ambient temperature by 10 to 15 degrees centigrade. So it's important, and in summer it's appreciated. So I would like to suggest that be considered and possibly added into the consideration. Lastly, and very most seriously, I'm not sure how it happened, but nobody knew about this project until yesterday afternoon, when the CBC called a number of people, including myself, for comment. Yes, I should have looked at the agenda of the Real Committee 5 days ago, as I usually would have done. Somehow I did get other priorities, which is not an excuse, but it's a reason. But there was a lack of posters. I went back yesterday to confirm there was no posters on the site, and we've talked to a number of neighbors, and nobody was advised of this today's meeting, which I do believe is an obligation and a requirement, and I find that therefore distressing. If that is the case, I would then ask.
It's a plan approval though, right? I mean, it's not a rezoning, right? I mean, whatever, we must have had a hearing on this at some point, and they tend to blend together, but I mean, there's a difference between posting requirements for rezoning or variance and a plan approval.
I grant you that, and Councilor Mays, and that's why I prefaced my information as for information, because I didn't have time to check into the legal technicalities. But it appeared to me that the developer had presumed that because the previous developer had an approval that has long expired, that he could presume that the approval would be brought forward. And it's not my understanding of the regulations. After the 2 years deadline of the original approval, the bylaw that had been tentatively approved goes by the wayside, and you got to start again. And so that is really a concern I have. And again, something I would not want to see as a precedent, that developers can jump in and take a shortcut on the consultation process, which is fundamental and eventually is part of the success story of a developer, because more people see better things, and everybody has a different site, but very often it becomes an endorsement of the project. So I would make a recommendation that if I'm correct, or if the statement is correct, that a delegation or a consultation should have taken place, that a circular should have been given to the neighborhood in the last, within 100 feet or 100 meters of the building, has not taken place. I would ask that be done, that the delay of the decision be made by 30 days and requested, and I'm leaving it if that is in order. Beyond that, I do want to say the development has taken a lot of effort to make it look good. They promise certain features. I won't comment on the features, it's all matter of taste, but it is a handsome building, and like everybody else that I think is active in the community on that respect, we recognize the need for apartments. We need to recognize the need for residential units. We do decry the lack of commitments, which through a condominium is very difficult for below market accessibility. hopefully the marketing of the department will find a way to accommodate some of such needs. But that is really beyond the scope of today's meeting, so I won't say any more. Otherwise, that's some of my comments.
Okay, I think you still had time on the clock. Did you want to add anything else?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, it's twice in a row in the last 10 years. That's terrible for my reputation. Thank you.
Well, I will, I'll keep my comments for later on that, Walter, like for a private conversation. Okay, just given the format, I did have a few are you aware questions, colleagues. I know how awkward it is. So are you aware on the green roof, I did speak to the proponent, and for technical reasons, that and other uses were not favorable. I don't know if my colleagues wanted to hear from the proponents on that. This is a plan approval, so there's no requirement for posting. The zoning renewal was in 2021, and so that was June 13th, sorry, 2023. The approval was 2021. Council routinely gives 2-year extensions on rezoning, so that happened June 13, 2023. I just looked up the minutes. Walter, I think, or Councillor Chambers, if I could ask you to take the chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
So through Councillor Chambers to Mr. Kleinschmidt, I think as you know, on the rationale for the building height, it was a compromise position with the building owner. I know your perspective is that we should have downzone, I guess, taken the smaller envelope based on what is in the planning development overlay. In my ruling, I didn't see the need to downzone what was in the planning development overlay. I saw it as a good compromise to keep the sight line to the 219 Provencher, as well as allowing those neighbors to have, well, access to view to the street where they normally would have had we done a de jure reading of the bylaw. We would have put just a square building beside another building. And so I thought that was reasonable at the time, but we're not re-adjudicating that. Today's the plan approval. And I think you did say that you don't want to redesign the building today. I didn't understand your comment about blinds, and you said something about the front of the building. Wasn't sure about that. I think I've addressed the issue of the plan approval. There's no public notice for those. And the signs, as part of the approval, I know the sign approvals come to the Rialto Community Committee for approval. So my understanding is that for legal reasons, we have signs come to the Rialto Committee meeting, and that's why we don't have the shall. We have the should as part of the PDO, and we then rule on the signage here. We often change it. So outstanding, I guess, outside of the are you aware questions, I guess you were speaking of blinds and the PDO, and you said something about the front of the building. And would you respond to those two questions?
Okay. In aspect of the front of the building, I'm not sure exactly, because the front of the building and the setbacks and so on are fine. The blind is that if a tenant goes into one of the spaces that is a medical office, which we have the case in the building next door to Place Joseph Royal, or in other adjacent buildings, then logically an office tenant or a tenant that has face-to-face meeting with lawyers, doctors, dermatologists, and so on, don't need a large window, basically. So they either cover it up. In most bylaws in other cities I've worked in would allow 25% maximum coverage of a window with signage or decals and so on. And then we have, or they put curtains. So the curtains, which is understandable from the user point of view, definitely destroys the purpose of the active storefront of the building. So the developer, the proponent, did hear that comment, because I said it to him the first time, and I recognize that the plan shows retail space. And I want to, so if to the extent that that designation of the plan is either enforceable or remindable to the owner, that satisfies the need. But if it turns out that someone at a lawyer's office loves the prestige of that location, and I want to be there, then we'll find out at that front. And I might add the comment that that's what happened to Porter Place 40 years ago. Most of the frontages were locked up. The doors were never used. It was done from the inside, and we had the back of stockroom, so we had basically black fronts. And that's what happens when you put a hoarding of some type on the window, because the activity behind the window does not fit the public domain. And that's why I want to make sure we protect that important benefit and that important consideration of the PDO plan. On the matter of the envelope, when does the building get permission to go beyond the PDO limits, which is 80 feet? If it's not at this time, that now baffles me, because it is a variation. And from the approval process, just like the setbacks and all of the other situations, when does that go through the process? Did I miss that, or is it yet to come?
So Walter, through the chairperson, during the rezoning, it was discussed that, yes, the PDO was at 80 feet. However, given concessions that we asked the proponent to make in their design, that the higher building was to accommodate a change of shape in the building where the neighboring property, where there are already windows, would be able to see out of their windows instead of looking at a concrete block. So I was faced with my colleagues the decision between approving the public service recommendation, which was make a change to accommodate those who would, if we use the boilerplate PDO, be looking at a concrete wall. Would we be okay with increasing the height, since it's not as of right, but as of PDO recommendations, it would be a big block, blocking the windows from the Pestro's FYI residents. So, like through you, Mr. Chambers, to Walter, would you want to speak to the few residents who are looking at a concrete wall and explain that that's more important than making a concession relative to the zoning rights that would be granted in the PDO?
Well, I think, Councillor Allard, that you would know that my answer, in spite of sometimes being argumentative, would not be to block on the people. But there's a mistake that was made, that was acknowledged at the previous process, and the accommodation given because of that error exceeds by far the benefit in terms of available square foot of developable space. So I challenged that logic argument, but it did not pass at the time. But I still want to go on the record saying that is still is a problem. An error was made. The developer is buying the property knowing there is a limitation on his west facade of the building, and would have priced the property accordingly so that not to have a damage rate of return because of an error of the developer and or the supervisor or the building inspector, whoever approved the Plaza FYL building way back when. We're not going to destroy the building either. So we've got to be practical. So there are practical solutions to that, but I think that's one, and there's a bit stronger than necessary to solve the damage of the lost footage. If you count the number of floors and the 10-foot setback that was allowed, it's not a deal for the community, it's a deal for the developer.
Okay, so.
And I want to make sure it's approved specifically, and I find that accordingly. I find your characterization of the PDO rather disturbing, because PDOs and secondary plans and zoning laws basically are not meant to see how far off you can go beyond that, but are meant to be followed, although there is always some variation inevitably.
So build the block and block the residents. There isn't,
No.
we've already done it
No.
on the ground here.
What
I
is
just
this-
wanted, are you aware? Are you aware?
Yeah, what is the setback of the building to the west of it, immediately to the west of it? Or do we know that?
It's part of the variance. Sets back.
Yeah, I would ask the proponent or one of the assistants, because the drawing, some of the scales are not, or measurements are not totally visible on the scale of the drawing, even though I printed them all.
All right, go ahead.
So, Mr.
Councillor.
Chair, are you aware, through you to the proponent, that this is an excellent deal for the community? I don't think I've ever seen 2 welled trees planted by a developer on public property, 2 car shares, reducing, and I can't recall the number of parking stalls required and the traffic in the community, as well as what St. Boniface residents have been asking for, which is living space for families with yet another concession by this proponent who's proposing, I think, 4 3-bedroom units, which by definition mean a loss to the developer. So with all due respect, through you, Mr. Chairperson, to Mr. Kleinschmidt, this is an excellent deal for the community. And were we to have done the boilerplate building that is proposed by the PDO, we'd have a brick wall in front of people's buildings. So I think this was excellent deal for the community and a good compromise in terms of the proponent and the reshaping of the building, so we wouldn't build, concrete and right in front of people's windows. So that's my are you aware question. I guess that entitles you to respond.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, I would not exactly summarize in the same manner the 3-bedroom apartments on the penthouse. The concern for the extra bedrooms for larger apartments has been raised at every meeting opportunity we've had, and has been increasingly taken into account by the developers. It's primarily for our new families coming into St. Boniface, which come primarily from the Levant or North Africa into the community, which have basically large families and are basically, mostly the case, not families that will be able to afford the rent of a penthouse. So the market for the penthouse revenue will be people that are probably very well off rent-wise compared to other apartments, and that will not satisfy the need for residents for large apartments for the evolving and growing market of St. Boniface. So I think it's a great decision, but it's not what the community needs specifically, although it's something I'm sure that will be rented. I won't be a hypocrite. I'm living in an apartment of that size here, a condo of that size, and I enjoy the space. I'm fortunate I can afford it, but having more of those size apartments does not meet the objectives that have been stated many times. Large apartments for the newcomers in this community, which come with large families, because our St. Boniface traditional families, no longer have 4 to 17 children. They have 1, 2, 3, or 4 children. The problem on the green space, well, we're going in circles, I'm sorry, has been resolved in so many other countries. I find that hard to fathom in spite of the winters here. And it's happening in Canada, east and west of us. So I think it's basically that nobody wants to be first, although there should be. That would urge, on a friendly note, to the proponents and his team to still consider that. It's still a possibility. And the setback on the west and the reason for it is historical. I think the compensation goes beyond it, and it would not have been necessarily a big box that you're suggesting would happen if that had been enforced. The architect who did this work could have equally done a beautiful job, and with a slightly smaller box. That is possible. So I think that's you're overstated it. What the community wants is affordable housing.
Should we take out the bedrooms?
Or in-housing.
Should we take out the 3 bedrooms?
No, I'm saying let's not kid ourselves, please. Okay. Let's make not fairy tales. The 3 bedrooms is a strategic business decision by the owner. There's a market for it. If I was looking for an apartment, I'd be one potential customer because I would like the space. I've lived in large apartments all my life because I was overseas in a market that provided it. I got a comfort level which probably is not average, but that does not make it what the community needs. The community needs 3-bedroom apartments at affordable prices for the new immigrants primarily. So let's not put separate mix the chickens and the eggs or whatever. So no. If he made smaller apartments, he'd have more apartments, and he would be further short of parking space. So he's doing the right thing there.
We could probably go forever, Mr. Kleinschmidt, but I think my colleague, Councillor Mays, has an intervention.
Well,
I
just,
concur.
I think some of these issues were hashed out at the original hearing. I do want to point out, and we'll come back to this, if we have concerns about people looking at a brick wall or a concrete wall, I think we're going to come back to that. That issue was to some extent dealt with in the infill guidelines. People like Mr. Clark, who's here, who said, look, people don't really want to look at a 50-foot deep, 35-foot tall stucco box. And so some of the guidelines incorporated that. Lower height limit, 28 feet in the mature communities, less depth for the buildings. We will be returning to this within the year with the discussion of the fourplexes everywhere position that the federal government wants us to adopt. So Councillor Chambers and I have had a sort of unfortunate falling out, talking about, well, I think we both are landed on the same page that there are going to be some exceptions to what you can build. We do need more housing, but surely the local residents' views matter somewhat. How then to incorporate that? I guess my point is no one really likes to look at a 48-foot wall, which is the proposal from the federal government, 48-foot height limit. So we're going to have, I think, a lot of discussion about setbacks and minimum width of a property that you should allow for a fourplex. We can all sit here and pat ourselves in the back saying, yay, we're going to have more development like Glenwood, where it's just been hugely controversial and the residents have largely not had a voice. But I think it's good that Councillor Allard is saying, look, we recognize people don't want to just stare at a wall, and I think that's going to come to us within the year with the idea of, well, let's just have fourplexes everywhere and 48 feet tall, and if you don't like it, I guess you're just backward or exclusionary or something. So I think Councillor Chambers and I have sort of landed on a rough agreement that there are some exceptions. You can't just say there's a crisis and then have housing approved everywhere. You have to take some note of the local population, some note of planning principles. So I appreciate what you're trying to say here, but I think a lot of what you're saying was hashed out at the original hearing, and we'll be returning to these issues, but in some ways it's perhaps progress that my colleagues are recognizing that people don't want to look at a big wall, and we should take seriously some of these issues. People say there's a crisis, but that doesn't mean we can't differentiate. We can't have some logical democratic input into how we go about reshaping the city. So I see some notes of progress here in terms of trying to take into account what some of the neighbors are saying.
Mr. Chair.
You have a response to that?
No comment. I agree with the comment. Interestingly, the windows on Joseph Royal, I think, are stairwell windows. They're not residential windows because this is apartments at the end of the building. All the other apartments in the building don't have windows facing east or west. So the issue of windows is really a moot point in terms of what's on this side of the window. But the matter had been discussed. I acknowledge that, and I'm glad it's being discussed again. So at least where people are increasingly aware of that situation, and over time, possibly as Councillor Mays has suggested, better solutions and better regulations will arise. It's unfortunate that the cost of that is an extra 10 feet of height, because I can guarantee you that the corner lot is going to ask for more than that, because I'm more important. I got two major streets on my building, and I like to go 100 feet, whatever, the first 100-foot building. And that's the drive of a developer. It's natural. It's part of the instinct. It's part of the blood in the veins. It legitimately needs to be managed by this committee, amongst others.
Any further questions, comments?
No, this time. Thank you,
Moving on.
Mr. Kleinschmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinschmidt.
Thank you very much, committee.
All right, so we have one more person that was registered in delegation that's now in the gallery. Jared Carrington, if you'd like to come down and speak to anything, you are welcome to. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think the intent was to move the delegations up so we could deal with the matter originally.
Okay. Yeah. The proponents have a chance to
Got to do public hearings
to-
by 11.
rebut.
Need to start public hearing. We at least need to open the public hearing by
Okay.
11.
Yeah.
So,
So if you want to return back to the stand there?
so then I would like to move plan approval for, or report 3, plan approval 150, 155, 157, 165 Provencher Boulevard, and I would like to move the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll take the chair back, Councillor Chambers.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
we're done.
Still 4 delegations.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So public hearings need to start by 11, but we do have some time for delegations.
Yep.
yeah.
So, Madam Clerk.
All right, so next we have David Grant, who's speaking in respect to the following items, Report 7 and Report 8. David will be joining us over Zoom. David, I've asked you to unmute, if you can also join with your video. David Grant, we have you in the gallery to speak to respect to items 7 and 8. If you could please join. All right, moving on. We have the following persons to be heard in respect to the plan approval at St. Anne's Road, which is Report 2. Oh,
Okay, now finally I've been able to unmute myself. It took a while for the buttons to become live. Anyway, thank you for this. I'll try and keep this down to just a couple of minutes because I know you're under some time pressure. On item 7, the study of this traffic stream is probably a good idea, but it should include hidden speed measurement, as with radar, automatic radar, and rubber tubes. The speed survey should provide 24-hour data. If there is evidence, and I know this has been done in areas like Lord Roberts and so on, if there is evidence of speeding, it can be provided to the police, who can consider stepped-up enforcement if this is a bona fide hot zone. If there is no evidence of speeding cars, then it is probably wrong to install impediments to travel, such as speed bumps. In general, we should have only speed bumps which do no damage to vehicles traveling at speeds typical of careful drivers. If such humps are badly designed, drivers are forced to nearly stop to protect their vehicles and contents. I think this has been an issue since the very first one on Thatcher. The theory of the speed bump is that cars traveling with caution do not need to brake. They just travel along at their cautious speed. Bad speed bumps increase Winnipeg's carbon content because people have to slam on their brakes and then accelerate again. And none of us want an increase in carbon footprint. On topic 8, while making the crossing more visible to drivers is a noble step, we must not allow complacency to put folks in danger. If we are serious about child safety, we must confirm that all students and caregivers have been trained in traffic safety. Schools offer information to some students on traffic dangers. That's part of, I think, grade 3 or something. But anyway, but the traffic safety programs that we had in my day are long gone from Winnipeg schools. Vision Zero is clearly a danger if it remains silent on the actions of those on foot and on bikes. We have put more emphasis on child safety in recent decades, but the outcomes are actually worse. We have crossing guards at almost every busy point. Many parents drive their kids to school or walk their kids to school. The need to make routine decisions by each student is far less frequent than in our day. This puts some students at risk when they're on their own. If they've gone to school and back for years and never had to actually look for cars because the guard is doing it for them, or the parent, then they're not going to be acclimatized to always looking left and right like we were. And that's all, just a general comment. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues on this? No. No, seeing none. Thank you for your continued participation in our meetings.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Madam Clerk.
All right, so we have the following persons to be heard in respect to Report 2. We have Mark Funk, David Watson, and Joanne Lafreniere. If you'd like to come down.
It's regarding which report?
This is plan approval 2,
Okay.
1269. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mark Funk. I'm with Affinity Architecture. I'm the applicant for the 5-story mixed-use development at 1269 St. Anne's Road. I'd like to just give a quick overview of the site, just so everyone is on the same page. So the property is kind of an odd triangular shape, which led us to the decision to make 2 separate buildings. The first building that will be constructed is on the right hand or the south side. That's a 2-story commercial building, very small. It is serviced by its own parking area just to the south. The second building is quite a bit larger. It's the 5-story building. It has main floor commercial facing St. Anne's all along the front, and that is used to screen off the indoor parking, which is in the main floor only, and also screens, the vast majority of the outdoor parking. So above the main floor, we have 4 stories of residential units, and like one of the previous projects, we do have a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So that's the site in a nutshell. I just wanted to speak briefly on the design process that we did have with the previous planner, Elise Finnegan. Back in, it's already 2023, we did several iterations with Elise, just going back and forth and trying to make the site as good or as great as possible. So we did incorporate a fairly substantial landscape border along the east side, facing the east and north side, facing the existing multifamily buildings there. There's a number of landscaping islands in between the parking stalls there for additional shade trees. We were able to create, a fully code-compliant fire truck access loop, which is quite difficult on a site as tight as this, and also provide the necessary 2 large refuse enclosures. So one of those refuse enclosures is for the residential garbage, the other is for the commercial garbage. We're not allowed to mix the 2. So by creating this loop, we have created a very safe site. If there was an emergency, it's quite easy to direct traffic the opposite way around the loop. So I hope that is appreciated. I also just wanted to just briefly mention This building will be constructed and owned by Progressive Real Estate. As you know, they've done many projects that have come through this council, and many projects, or I shouldn't say many, but some projects that have had substantial opposition. And it should be noted that, even those highly controversial projects, once built, there has been little to no complaints about them. So I just wanted to, make it known that Progressive Real Estate does quality projects, and they maintain them well, and are generally, trying to make the community happy, and do whatever they can to do so. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, so thank you for your presentation this morning. Looking at the submitted plans, it looks like it calls for a curb cut on St. Anne's Road between the residential and the commercial.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Was there a traffic study done in terms of, having it at this location? I mean, there are pedestrians that cross that same sidewalk. And then, there is Creek Bend Road that is just further south there. Adding a curb cut midway through between residential and commercial, wouldn't that add safety concerns to this location? Especially with the fact, during the summer months, and I live in the area, just south of Aldgate to the perimeter, there is substantive traffic, especially those that are heading to Cabin Country, and traffic can be quite dire there. How was this agreed upon in terms of having a curb cut right at this location here?
We were not asked to do any sort of traffic impact study, so we did not. Previously, we did have a second access onto St. Anne's Road. That was a bit further south than this one. But we opted to remove that at the direction of I believe it was Public Works. So we have been, working with them to try to make this as safe as possible.
So you've got potentially first responder vehicles, you've got garbage trucks, you've got wintertime snow clearing machinery. This just adds to the complexity of traffic there. I mean, I'm not certain that not doing a traffic study or some proper engineering around this to provide a better understanding of how traffic flows here, as well as mitigating some of the safety concerns around traffic.
Okay, noted.
You mentioned the garbage enclosures. You're not allowed to mix residential and commercial. So again, I'm looking at the plans here, and I guess that's the enclosures right beside where you have the curb cut there?
The two enclosures are in the middle of that loop.
Oh, and okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to read here. And then there's parking stalls just to the, I guess that would be southeast?
Yes, there are parking stalls there.
Okay. You've also got, I guess that's the residential condos right behind there. That's the Hollows? Or is that the Legend? That's the Hollows, right?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, because what's the space between the parking stalls, and is that fenced or is that still open? I mean, the concern would be the lights flashing onto the apartment dwelling just behind those parking stalls?
Right. That is a landscape buffer. It's, I believe it's 4 feet wide, 5 feet wide at some points. So that is allowed by the bylaw as long as you provide a certain amount of trees and shrubs.
Okay, so for bigger trucks and larger vehicles, I mean, it's still going to shed light on those residents, especially on the main floor. So there's no fencing or anything like that?
Not currently. We would certainly provide if requested.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Other questions? Seeing none? Madam Clerk?
We do have our next person up for delegation. However, I do want to remind us that we have to go to public hearings prior to 10:59.
Okay, let's do that, at least open it.
Yeah, let's open public hearings and then recess them till council meeting 11:30 or?
That should give us sufficient time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So do I have a Madam Clerk, what would be the motion?
If you can just give me a moment.
Yeah, thanks.
So our motion would be to begin the public hearings and then recess the hearing to continue the regular meeting.
Somebody want to move that?
I'll move that.
Councilor Chamber moves, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Okay, so now need a motion to adjourn public hearings?
Or recess.
Recess public hearings till 11:30, or do we not need a motion for that?
One moment for that.
Because I think the intent is to get back into regular reports.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
we should be able to get through those fairly quickly.
Okay. So I will open the public hearings by reading out our introductory statements,
Okay.
and we'll adjourn, or recess to the regular meeting. All right.
Thank you.
So for beginning the public hearing meeting, I'm going to pass you our script for introducing.
Oh, okay, thanks. Oh, you know what? I think this is yours, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, she's got a copy.
So,
That's- She
call-
reads the.
right, but I think we've already done the meeting to order. We've done the treaty acknowledgement.
Okay.
I've introduced members of the committee, et cetera, so I think
Perfect. So
it's your part now.
in accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department.
I'm not sure the
So now
next
we recess.
piece is required, but do we want to go through the rest of the introduction and recess? Or-
Yep.
Normally, we
So-
can just recess, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I'm going to introduce item 1, and then we can recess. So item 1 is a zoning agreement amendment at 419 St. Anne's Road, under file ZAA 11 of 2024. Please note, additional communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. There's no participants in the Zoom, and there we go. That's all of our items for that introduction.
Okay, so motion to recess the public hearings till 11:30.
so moved?
Moved by Councilor Chambers, all in favor? Aye. Contrary, carried. So back to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, which item are we at?
All right.
Delegations.
We are still on delegations. Our next delegate up for speaking on report 2 is David Watson.
Councilor Reeves, you want to take the chair?
Sure. How come you've got up to 10 minutes to speak to us? Councillor Allard's just getting a coffee, so.
Surely. This is I don't have a PowerPoint. Unlike Mr. Kleinschmidt, we didn't really have the time to do a proper presentation, so I'm just going to do some prepared remarks. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me. May I speak? Should we wait for Councillor Allard? Excuse me.
Carry on.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to present today. I am David Watson, 245 Creekbend Road, acting chair of the Creekbend Residents Association. The CBRA represents almost 550 families living in 7 condo communities in the Creekbend area. Other CBR members, some of them here today, can best represent individual their individual communities and speak on issues like building heights, parking, fencing, garbage enclosures, lot lighting, vegetation, and shadow studies, or lack of same. I'd like to talk today mostly about something that affects us as a larger community, transportation and safety, which is a community-wide concern. When 1269 St. Anne's Road, the subject property, was first subdivided in 2012, the original developers could have asked for a secondary exit onto the adjacent Creekbend Road, which had just been constructed. If they did ask the city for that, they were certainly refused. The current internal traffic is diverted into the Woods parking lot to the northeast and not onto Creekbend Road itself. And that's been that case with that property since at least 2012. When the neighboring Legend of Creekbend condo project was first proposed, yet another condo project, Legend of Creekbend, it was original developers. They were from, I believe, Medicine Hat. They wanted a secondary exit onto Creekbend Road near the old bridge. They were refused, although the project name stuck, and so we have the scenario where Legend of Creekbend is actually located on St. Anne's Road, not on Creekbend, but we're proud that they want to borrow our name. A dozen years ago, the city recognized that St. Anne's Road, even before it was widened, was more appropriate for exits and entrances for St. Anne's properties than Creekbend Road was. Historic Creekbend residents, people living in the rural 5-acre properties, were never asked if they wanted a new T-intersection built east of St. Anne's Road. Their once gravel road, which used to be straight, was split and realigned without any real community consultation. But the city, they knew best. They knew that the South Royalwood Precinct K housing development was coming on stream, and that the Amy's Road Bridge was on the event horizon. Turns out that was an open secret. Everybody knew about the perimeter safety plan. They knew that the Creekbend Road would be a vital transportation link to the supposedly vacant lands across the Seine River, although the 24 families who live there might disagree that they're vacant lands. Last week, I spoke with Qualico, and they confirmed that they intend to develop their greenfields in Precinct K, now part of the St. Vital ward, after their Sage Creek and Precinct J developments are built out or nearing completion. It's anticipated that 10% of all future Precinct K vehicular traffic, including current Bonavista Vista traffic, the drivers, they're St. Vital ward residents now, they'll eventually use Creekbend Road in the St. Norbert Seine River ward. So the Seine River is the border between the two wards, and there'll be a lot of traffic back and forth to use amenities like new community centers and the commercial amenities in Sage Creek. Now the CPKC, the old Emerson Line railway crossing, was originally supposed to open 3 weeks ago, but it hasn't, and there is no time for completion known right now. Due to legal and regulatory issues, the connection from Amy's Road to Melnick Road has been delayed. Now, when it's legally opened, both Amy's Road and Melnick Road businesses will be compelled to use the Creekbend Road entrance onto St. Anne's Road. Now, they're not forced to. They'll still have the ward exit and entrance in Bonavista. But I've been told by First Student Canada They're located in the old Gertens property on Melnick Road. They think at least 50 of their school buses will make the 4 traffic movements at the St. Anne's Road intersection every school day. And as I was driving here this morning, I saw 8 of them interspersed with maybe 2 vehicles between them on their way to the perimeter to make their turn. And as soon as that railroad crossing is open, they'll be making that same turn, but onto Creekbend Road. Now, we found out earlier on this year about the new City of Winnipeg Transit Plan. It's going to be the plan will be implemented, I believe, next summer. And a Winnipeg Transit Plan transit bus will enter and leave Creekbend at least once every 10 minutes during peak hours, around a minimum of 6 buses per hour, but that's a minimum. They could go more. Now, Creekbend's a still growing community. There's at least 3 vacant lots, including 1269. Building plans have already been approved for 152 apartments at 180 Creekbend Road at the Seine River Bridge. And the Oxbow property, the vacant property at 112 Creekbend, was formally approved for 59 apartments. Now, these will be apartments, not condos, so the demographics may change a bit, and many of the working age residents living in those apartments will leave, and enter the community during the rush hour, putting added stress upon Creekbend's ability to handle traffic during peak hours. Now, when the province implemented its South Perimeter Highway Safety Plan, they agreed to pay for a 3rd traffic lane at the Creekbend Road intersection. And an existing lane on Creekbend was then redesignated for traffic exiting the community towards the South Perimeter. A new 4th lane for St. Anne's Road traffic on Creekbend for traffic entering the community was, turning the page, never built or even proposed. The expectation was that the incoming traffic would simply flow into the community towards the T intersection, where it splits into two directions, and then you can go either left, which is north to the bridge, or right, south to the Amy's Road Bridge. There's currently no stop sign there at the T for incoming traffic, and this makes certain that there'll never be any rush hour traffic backing up onto St. Anne's Road. They'll always have right-of-way. Now, the 3rd traffic lane paid for by the province and already constructed, was never designed to stack incoming traffic waiting for stopped vehicles to turn into 1269 St. Anne's Road. This isn't a Tim Hortons. The proposed entrance exit into the 1269 St. Anne's Road property to be built only 30 feet east of St. Anne's Road. I'm measuring from the sidewalk, which would impede traffic flow now in 2024, in 2025 when transit bus volume surges, in 2026 when the school buses presumably arrive, and in the early 2030s when the first commuters from Precinct K, from Bonavista, and from the Qualico lands to the south, and from South Royalwood, when they all start driving tentatively over the new bridge, which should open hopefully by this Friday. Now, this simple curb cut could even affect traffic safety on St. Anne's Road itself. Incoming drivers may have become confused or even panicked when they suddenly have to brake and stop on St. Anne's Road as they're turning onto Creekbend. Someone whose turning signal is already on will suddenly start stopping. The turning signal hasn't even had time to turn off, and suddenly they're turning left once more. It took a near fatal accident on Lagimodier to advance the planned Sage Creek traffic safety improvements. They were planned, but suddenly they became, we're going to do that right away. The current plans for added traffic lanes and signalization on St. Anne's Road in 2027, 2028 don't include a 4th traffic lane for Creekbend Road. I guess the question is, if we needed an added lane, would it take a serious accident to get to that point? Now, the solution to what is an entirely predictable safety and traffic issue is, I don't know if it's another traffic study or even if it's a commitment for a new 4th lane. The solution, the easiest solution, is to reject the proposed plans for the Creekbend curb cut. And again, no one here is talking about the building or the complex, we're just talking about a curb cut here. And to continue to direct legitimate St. Anne's Road traffic onto St. Anne's Road and not onto Creekbend Road, which was the city's previous policy. The decision to reject changes to the current road configuration is the safest, the cheapest, and the most efficient option for the Riel community. And do I have a few more minutes?
Yeah, we'll move extension 2 minutes. How much time do you need?
Oh, sorry. Very quickly, I'll simply say that between the T intersection and the creek.
How much time do you need?
Just say it's rules of order.
Hi there, a gentleman, 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Move extension 3 minutes.
Okay, moved by Councilor Chambers. All in favor? Aye. Contrary carried. Go ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen. Between the T intersection and the Creek Bend Bridge is some limited on-street parking. It's used by guests and visitors to condos, especially in the woods. It's very well used, and there's not often very many empty parking spots. Now, the development of Precinct K in the long term and 180 Creek Bend Road in the short term may make it necessary at a certain point for the city to eventually remove these parking spots. Now, if there's any assumption on the part of the developer and their architects that this can be serving as an overflow parking, that may not be a permanent solution. Traffic flow may require 2 cleared lanes for local and regional traffic with no on-street parking on Creek Bend. And so I would say that I think some of the people following will have more points on parking. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Colleagues, questions?
Yeah. The proposal by the developer to put in a curb cut, which is seemingly further south from the existing, closer to Creek Bend Road, again, in my opinion as well, would add some complexities. So what is your proposal in terms of maintaining safety? You know, recognizing that, 2027, 2028, there's potential for added capacity on St. Anne's Road.
Well, I was surprised when Mr. Funk mentioned that Public Works was the one who objected to entrance and egress to the commercial parking lot off of St. Anne's. This surprised me. I'm not sure how or why they did that. But having said that, I would say that St. Anne's traffic belongs on St. Anne's Road, and I would consider anything in the commercial lot and the 3 commercial buildings to be St. Anne's Road traffic. So I guess if I had to, without having to ask them to do a major redesign to their project, I would say moving the curb cut onto St. Anne's Road directly, and perhaps making in the boulevard, creating a wider swing for people to do a U-turn might be a solution. That's a traffic engineer's job to figure out solutions like that, but that's what I would say.
You mentioned parking on Creek Bend Road that could exacerbate flow of traffic potentially. There is no stacking for cars turning north onto Creek Bend Road with the what was it, 120, the Oxbow, and then 180?
Oxbow, yeah, for some reason they just renumbered themselves to 112, so we're going to all have to remember that 120 Creek Bend, the empty lot is now 112, okay. And 180 is also being built, or a development already has permissions to build a property there with 159 units. So there will be a lot more traffic and a lot more demand for people to park on Creek Bend. Just with the production or the creation of 2 new projects, never mind 1269 and any commercial proper traffic there as well, yeah.
Yeah, so again, I tried to work to get more surface parking for 180 Creek Bend. That was met with displeasure, but that was a mechanism to try to reduce on-street parking on 180 Creek or on Creek Bend Road. There is a parking lot behind the woods that, what I'm looking at here and traffic into there on these plans, I mean, again, I agree with the amount of school buses, with the increased transit that's coming. with increased density that's coming, that wouldn't be a desirable location. Potentially, signalization may be required. Additional traffic studies will be, and I've tabled many, many motions for traffic studies to be done based on the fact that the province is trying to move traffic off of the perimeter highway and onto some of these regional roads. Public Works came back and said, or our traffic engineering said signalization is not necessary yet based on the volume of traffic that's currently being experienced. You mentioned Precinct K. It's my understanding that it's not going to be as dense as originally thought. There's also plans to extend by virtue of a bridge across Ward into Precinct K as well that might alleviate some of those traffic concerns as well.
Yeah, the traffic study that was done during the creation of Precinct K said that 10% of all local regional traffic would use the Creek Bend Road Bridge. I would imagine if I worked or I was a student at the U of M, that would be my go-to route. I mean, I would probably, rather than going north to Ward, I'd probably go down Creek Bend. But it's only until it's actually built that we'll actually know. But we do know that eventually it will be built, and that's the thing is traffic studies deal very much in the here and now, and the future is, we know that the railroad crossing is going to happen, the school buses will be coming. So I guess my question is it sufficient to approve something that's sufficient for traffic today and not necessarily for something that's perhaps outdated in 2030, 2035? I mean, if a fourth traffic lane on Creek Bend is something that is inevitable, then I guess it's inevitable. But in the interim, I guess it's the safety issues that would be dominant for me to think about.
So, and to your point, it is recognized that in terms of, what the density that's being created today, it should be addressed into the future as well. And so that is duly noted. And that is, I think, what Public Works has picked up on and has met with concern. So thank you for your presentation today. We will still continue to debate this with the public service in terms of what the safest way to accommodate this development, both commercial and residential. The fact that there was no rezoning, the fact that there was no variances, it moved it along very quickly without the need of a public hearing. I've always said that, despite the changes that are coming in terms of the Housing Accelerator Fund and the need for housing, there's still a need for developers to reach out to neighbors, to reach out to stakeholders, and have those conversations as they're part of the neighborhood as well. So for whatever reason, that didn't happen in this particular situation. That's where we're at right now.
Thank you. And we look forward to talking to Robin Lee and Precon when it comes time for 112 Creek Bend. We're always open to talk to developers. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's all right.
To his,
Just hang on one second, please.
Yes, we have another question.
to his credit, Councillor Chambers has been able to dynamite some action on the twinning of St. Anne's Road all the way down to the perimeter. There's a provision in the budget that calls for at least study of this in some funding now, some funding in 2028, some millions of dollars. So I don't know if Public Works is available whenever we get to this item, but given that we seem to finally have a plan to widen this stretch that didn't get twinned 15, 20 years ago, how does that impact on any plans that are going to go on down there? Shouldn't we be figuring, well, whatever we're doing, the twinning is likely going to come by the end of this decade? So not really a question for Mr. Clark here, but I don't know if Councillor Chambers himself has more knowledge of this, but it does seem something I tried to get when I was the area councillor. Glad to see Councillor Chambers getting some action on it, but I don't know what impact that might have.
And in speaking with the planner, I did request that we have Public Works on standby. Were you able to?
I have someone on, from Public Works. I'm just corresponding with them through Teams, so I can ask if they're potentially able to join.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
No problem.
You had a second question?
No, I just would like to know what, I mean, finally we're getting some movement on the twinning issue because of the traffic. I mean, we've tried everything from getting a bigger sign to traffic signal. Nothing has been approved, so glad to see something finally getting going on that area. Again, now in Council Chambers' ward, post-2018, but I don't know how that would impact would that make it easier to just put all the traffic onto St. Anne's Road? I don't know. I suspect it would.
Well, I know some of the initial concern was you got traffic lights or signalization at Aldgate and St. Anne's, and then signalization at the perimeter and St. Anne's. It's probably about 600 meters, 800 meters where Creek Bend is, and having lights stacked like that would potentially cause backups in other areas. So again, this is potentially our traffic engineers, for them to solve and resolve. We had further north between South Glen and Ward added pedestrian half signals that some thought would, stall traffic or back up traffic. Pedestrian half signals are functional in the sense of the flow of pedestrians and cyclists. Again, seemingly it is a good fit for that area. So it would be incumbent on the traffic engineers to come up with a plan that addresses safety as well as traffic flow.
I don't have confirmation that this person is able to join. They have relayed some information to me, which I can relay to you if that's of help. So in light of information that has arisen based on future transportation plans for St. Anne's, the previous review that took place by the approach technician identified that the approaches conformed to that standard requirement of being 6 meters from any given intersection. However, there's an overriding clause that Public Works can refer to with respect to traffic safety, and with the impending changes to St. Anne's, there are some concerns that have been identified with the approach locations.
So, say again?
Sorry, there have been some concerns identified with the approach locations as identified on the current plans.
Okay.
So we have relayed this to the applicant, and I think the intention is that we're going to go back to the drawing board and look at a way to find approaches that are more suitable or in line with the conforming requirements that Public Works has identified.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay. I see no further questions. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, close
All
the
right,
public
well, the heartening news from Public Works. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, there's a suggestion we go into public hearings.
We have one more delegate that's registered, Joanne Lafreniere.
Probably get through 10 minutes.
So we may have to defer plan approval for 12:60.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have to do the public hearings at all.
We have changed recess for public hearings.
We can do it, recess again.
Yeah, we're in recess now, but we can also.
Open and recess again. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Speak today. I'm Joanne, and I represent the Board of Directors and the residents at the Woods at Creek Bend. In theory, we're not against this development of this property, but we do have some areas of concern. Now, one of them we've just talked to death, but I won't reiterate and spend your time on that, but our biggest concern, of course, is the Creek Bend cutout. A couple other little thoughts that I'd like to share that haven't already been considered is the first speaker, the builder, refers to the fire truck traffic loop emergency. If you have a look at the plans, the fire loop or emergency loop is in the residential complex. And when you look at the multi-service portion, it doesn't appear that there's a through road for these emergency vehicles. And when you consider that there's no back lane and no loading docks indicated, how will that work for emergency vehicles needing to come into the multi-service complex? So in addition to the traffic concerns, the cutout, the backup onto St. Anne's, we think that's another concern that should be looked at very closely. The Councillor Chambers has referred several times, as did David, to the concerns about traffic backup, bus stops, high-frequency transit. Those are all our biggest concern also, but we do have some pretty big concerns around emergency vehicle access and exiting in that particular area also. So we just really want to implore the city to reconsider this portion of the build and look at what our best options are for safety for the community of St. Anne's and Creekbend. I think our next concern is about the proposed parking. The east side of the new build faces the west side of the woods. And while they've got some beautiful plans for shrubbery and trees, and Councillor Chambers brought this up already, we really do want to echo that privacy, if you look at how much space there is, privacy, lights, and the plans don't show any plans for parking lighting. So we really have some concerns not only around parking. Yes, like parking lot lighting.
Okay.
So we're really looking at directional lighting. So if they have ambient lighting, that would also have a very large impact on the floor 1 and 2 residents of the woods. So not only is a fence really necessary, it's also a winter province. So despite, we're thrilled about the shrubbery and greenery, but that will do nothing for 3 months of the year for privacy and lighting. So we're really asking for that to be reconsidered as a neighborhood. And then I think finally we have concerns around parking. The residential and commercial property shows that it does meet the minimum requirements of the build, of course, or we wouldn't be here talking. But it shows 102 rental units with 122 parking stalls. That leaves very few for extra visitors, and 16 are designated small car parking lot. How do you control that? So if you look at the space that's allocated, there's very little room if a truck is parked there. If you're renting a home, what do you apply to rent a home and say the size of your car? We all know that that's not going to happen. And then if you look at the commercial build, they have 11 businesses, 17 parking spots designated. So if only 2 staff members who go to those businesses, 5 of them have nowhere to park, and there's 0 parking for customers, how would that business model work? How will those businesses survive, and where will those people park? So in a nutshell, we think there needs to be some reconsideration to the parking. I think that the resulting problem is we all know there's no parking on St. Anne's. We know the infrastructure and redevelopment of Creekbend, and as David stated, we have 3 vacant lots with more properties being developed. And this particular build, the plans don't show sufficient parking, and all that's going to result in is people parking in the Oxbow, the woods, cars being towed, ill will, all kinds of neighborhood disruption. And in a nutshell, those are our 3 major concerns, and we hope you can help us address them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so again, traffic congestion and parking have been probably the bane of my existence.
I bet they are.
In terms of the Creekbend area. Plans are underway, or planning is, for the extension or widening of St. Anne's Road. That's still a bit away. With respect to 180 Creekbend and the development there was more parking underneath than there was surface parking. I worked with the developer to to consider additional surface parking so that it would not further exacerbate parking on Creek Bend Road. Again, met with displeasure.
I bet.
But, you know, where we're at right now is with 112 Creek Bend and potentially this development, it will add to parking challenges, quite simply.
Well, and the residents of this area have been all summer without any parking on Creek Bend due to so there is already ill will in the neighborhood with people using other people's parking and double parking and et cetera, and
Trust
inevitably.
me, I get those phone calls.
Yeah, you're going to get some more.
Yeah.
Just point of note, living at the Woods today, turning north onto St. Anne's at 8:15 a.m., it took us 9 minutes. With the high traffic coming off of the perimeter at the speeds they were coming at, we watched 2 people unsafely nearly get clipped, one heading south to the perimeter, pass on the not really a shoulder lane, and the other one cut in front of traffic unsafely. Imagine what happens when there's a bus parked there to turn into Creek Bend.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I moved towards reducing the speed limit coming off the perimeter highway to
Keep
down to
trying.
60. Oh, no, it has been reduced already, but more enforcement is necessary because that's what changes behavior. You know, it is concerning. I mean, my parents live in Southdale. I take the perimeter to go on to 59 and to their place, and I see on a daily basis what happens there. So, and at night, increasing lighting. With the fact that the school bus business
First Canada.
yeah, is there. That's adding to traffic and you know, concerning because they're bigger vehicles.
Yeah, and the high-frequency transit, which David spoke about, that's, 50 buses.
And once the Melnick Road and Ames Road are joined, you're going to have commercial traffic on there as well. So it is concerning to me, very concerning. From day one, it's been a concern. It's been something that I've been working with residents in the area, as well as the different levels of government to address. You know, where we're at right now, we'll have to consider Public Works, the concerns that they've brought to the table, and work with the developer to try to resolve these issues to make it as safe as possible, not only now, but into the future as well as density increases in the area. So thank you for your presentation this morning. The points, I've taken down the points. I mean, the other thing that really hasn't been addressed, again, you mentioned it, we're a winter city, snow clearing, you know, it's going to impact parking.
And lighting.
You know, I presume the snow clearing will be off-site. It won't be stacking on-site.
Nowhere left to
There is
stack.
nowhere left, so, but that's something that has to be raised as well. And making sure that any snow clearing that occurs, it's not left on site.
Well, we appreciate your consideration and any help you can to resolve these issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, we're getting close to public hearing time, so it's the end of the delegations.
There is one that is interested in speaking. Jeff Mill, going to move a motion to suspend the rules to allow.
Okay, well, we don't have enough time for 10 minutes to the public hearing. Do we need to recess, Madam Clerk?
No, we're not required to start specifically at 11:30 for the public hearing.
Oh, we got 30 minutes statutory buffer, is that it? No?
No, we can just proceed with the regular scheduled agenda and then go to public hearing when we're ready to. Now that we've started the public hearing
Oh,
and recessed it, it's,
So now it's carte blanche after that, right?
Okay, so that's the motion.
So,
Suspend the rules to allow.
oh, right, okay. So Councilor Chambers moves to suspend the rules to allow for an additional delegation.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried.
So,
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I did register, but I guess it got lost somewhere, so thank you very much. My name is Jeff Milnes. I'm the developer of Progressive Real Estate. We are looking at the project at 1269 St. Anne's. I just wanted to speak to a few of the things that were discussed this morning, hopefully for your consideration. Mark's gone through the entire development, I think, in detail in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here, so I won't really bore you with those details, but I'll speak more to some of the concerns. Regarding the fence along the border between us and the woods, I have no problem building a fence there to their agreement to provide that proper buffer from the light shining at their building. We hopefully can do the fence and the landscaping buffer. That would be our objective. I believe they already have a landscaping buffer, so we would just look to enhance that between the buildings to make this more agreeable for everyone. On the garbage, we purposely moved the garbage bins away from the lot line and put them in the center of the development so that it would not, lead to, unsavory smells next door to our neighbors. And then, as Mark mentioned, one enclosure is for the residents and one's for the commercial unit. The commercial units, the three over on the far right-hand side, would be private collection, and that garbage would be retained within the building and taken over daily to the dumpster in the middle of the development. Our intention is to use city collection, and as Mark mentioned, the way that our loop is designed, the garbage trucks from the city would be permitted and would work to collect the garbage from those bins. So really no private collection is required aside from what's happening within the three commercial units on the far right. I'll come back to the approach. Parking, a lot of talk about parking. We've designed this site with 13% more parking than what's required per the bylaw. That's essentially what we've done here, small car, regular car. It does all fit, and from our experience as being a developer, this is more than sufficient for the site in terms of how we're trying to make this work. There won't be any cars parking on Creek Bend Road. It's too far. Nobody's going to walk in the wintertime around the corner to park their car there. Whether there's parking restrictions or not, again, nobody's really going to park there. As was mentioned as well, St. Anne's, you can't park in St. Anne's, so we do need to deal with our own parking on our own site, and that is our intention in terms of how we've designed this. Let's not forget that this is a major transit route, and we hope that people will use public transit to interact with our building. Light standards, yes, I think those may have been omitted from the drawings, but we certainly would have the intention of having down lighting, not projected lighting onto neighbors' buildings. So again, we'll try to keep the lighting within our own site. Snow clearing, unfortunately, that would have to be removed from the site. There is no place sufficient on the site to store snow. That's not untypical for developments of this size and developments of the area. Most snow gets removed from the site. Okay, the approach. We attempted to have discussions with Public Works earlier in the year about this approach. Our original design did have a second approach onto St. Anne's. That was my preferred option in terms of the approach and how the cars getting into that commercial lot would come in and out of the parking lot. Let's also not forget that that's only 25 cars coming in and out of there on an infrequent basis during the day, potentially into the early evening. That's the extent of the cars that will be interacting with that parking lot. It got moved to Creek Bend because Public Works told us that St. Anne's was not permitted. And as I just found out yesterday, Public Works also does not agree with the Creek Bend approach now either. So I'm not exactly sure what the solution is here. So my preference would be to move it back to St. Anne's Road, as has been suggested by others today. It's over triple the distance away from the intersection versus where it currently sits today. So again, my preference would be to put it back there. In terms of the other approach that goes into the development, there is already an approach existing. This approach is a little bit further south than the existing one, but there is currently a curb cut for the former church site. A couple more notes about the site. Originally, there was, I believe, a Tim Hortons planned here. That would have been a tremendous amount of traffic coming in and out of this development. I think what we've designed now is something that's less impactful to the community, versus a drive-through, noises, 24-hour operation, a lot of traffic back up onto the road. So we've gone against that idea, and we're moving towards a multifamily mixed-use development as we've presented today. In terms of construction timeline, there's been some discussion here about the upgrade of St. Anne's Road and the perimeter highway overpass. My hope is that by the time we get to completing this development and people are living here and this commercial building is complete and people are working here, that there'll be some work done on St. Anne's Road. In terms of our timeline, we're probably not starting construction on any of this until next year. If we're looking at sort of mid-next year, 18-month construction, now we're already knocking on the door of 2027. And I'm hopeful that by 2027, we'll be actually doing something with maybe widening the street here. I remember back when we were talking about 180 Creek Bend Road a long time ago, we did a traffic study back then, and it was deemed that traffic signals were not required at Creek Bend and St. Anne's. Maybe they are required now. As someone else mentioned earlier, 10% of Precinct K traffic's going to be coming through there. They upgraded the bridge. There probably was a reason they did that, because there's going to be more traffic. So potentially a signalization at Creek Bend and St. Anne's is required. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not here to try to add to the problem. I'm just trying to do a development that I think fits in well with the community and the objectives of the city. I think that's it in terms of my notes. For today, we've presented a plan. I know that the approach is a little bit, at issue. We are agreeable to trying to move it to St. Anne's if that's the desired direction of the committee. Thank you.
I see here that Public Works has reached out. The plans as proposed will need to take into consideration that this approach is recommended to not be supported by Public Works. A non-conforming approach application would need to be submitted to the Standing Policy Committee of Public Works. You were advised of this, and you're amenable to going back to the drawing board with Public Works to come up with a design that would provide a conforming access. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I would guess I would add that, I reached out to Public Works in January of this year to discuss this issue. I heard nothing back from them. We proceeded with the plans we thought were best after they denied our application with the St. Anne's approach. So we moved it to Creek Bend, and then I found out yesterday that the Creek Bend approach also wasn't agreeable. So sure, we can talk about it. It's just disappointing that we're talking about it now and not months ago.
So you'd be okay for deferral plan approval today to a future date?
I guess so. I mean, I don't really have much choice.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for your delegation.
All right, so that's the end of our delegations. So we can move over to report number 1, which is the plan approval for 166 Sadler Avenue.
Okay. 166 Sadler.
Any concerns from planning staff on this one, Mr. Clerk?
Excuse me, no concerns from planning on the proposed application. It aligns generally with the policies under Complete Communities 2.0 and generally in line with policies of the infill guidelines and follows the conditions of approval that were imposed upon the rezoning application.
3 units?
3 units, sorry.
That's all.
Yes.
All right,
3
sounds
units.
good. I will, what am I moving here then? I will move the approval of the submitted plans.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Report 2. Councillor Chambers.
I will move deferral of the plan approval to allow the proponent to meet with Public Works and discuss the issues and concerns that were raised today in our committee meeting.
Okay, and that would be for the next meeting of Riel?
So the next meeting is October 30th.
Yeah, that should be sufficient time.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. We've already dealt with 3. Number 4, St. Boniface. Councillor Chambers, you want to take the chair?
Sure.
I will move the public service recommendation with, looks like one more one more lane to be off the list, off the complaint list. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, carried.
St. Vital, Councillor Chambers, I'll take the chair back.
Go ahead.
Councillor Mays.
The next one's a bit tricky in that it's not simply St. Vital ward, it's one that's mine, one that's Councillor Allard. So I think we are,
No objection.
I'm going to come back with mine fails here, the St. Boniface one passes. I'll have a new business item. The only reason this is failing is because of one landowner, the St. Vital one. So I will,
Got to move new business now?
I'll move number 5. I don't think we receive his information. I think we approve the public service report at number 5.
And then would your intention be to then
Invoke.
change?
Yeah. Discuss this with the clerk,
Okay.
who has drafted up an item 9
Okay.
motion. But,
Perfect.
for-
So
at this instant, then we will move to approve number 5 as presented, but I will have a new business item come.
okay, so moved by Councillor Mays, report 5, the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried.
And can we correct that? It's not just I'm just noticing it's listed as St. Vital ward. It's actually, for some reason, these are in together. One is St. Vital, one is St. Boniface.
Yes, Madam Clerk, can that be done?
Yes, we can make that amendment.
Okay, without any motions or anything?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Next is item 6, St. Boniface Ward,
I'll take the chair.
subdivision rezoning, extension of time, okay. Is this the same property that's come many times? Now, I'll move the, what happens if I move it to the next meeting? Is there a statutory deadline to this?
This did come from a council decision that the public service provide an update of this project on this meeting date.
Okay, does the public service want to provide an update? Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Welcome. Okay, where are we at on this?
Good morning, councillors. Angie Savage, Land Development Administrator. Back in April of this year, council concurred in the recommendation of SPC to approve this extension of time to January 2025. It's for a subdivision and rezoning to consolidate the subject land with the inclusion of the adjacent public lane to the east and rezone the land to an R2, two-family district. One of the recommendations was to provide an update on this. So due to ongoing developments with this application as recent as last week, I'm providing this report verbally to ensure I deliver the most up-to-date information, which actually came in on Friday. There's 2 key steps that need to be achieved by the developer, which is Qualico Communities, which support this application, and they are contingent upon. The first is the purchase of the lane from our real estate branch, and the second is related to the lane closing, which is Development Application DAC 9 of 2016. All of these steps are being coordinated in parallel with this subdivision and rezoning application. The draft purchase and sale agreement for the lane was provided by the city back in May. Qualico Communities provided comments back in July, and the final version was sent to Qualico on September 18th for execution, which they anticipate will occur by the end of this month. The provisional legal plan Mylars were submitted to land titles in June for both the lane closing and the subdivision. Qualico received tentative approval, and the Mylars have now been submitted to the city in July. And Qualico also provided Manitoba Hydro with the necessary information back in May to facilitate drafting their required easement agreements. To date, they haven't received those yet from Hydro. The next steps are as follows. Qualico will return the executed purchase and sale agreement to pay the required fees to the city, and administration can initiate second and third readings for enactment of the bylaw, which will include the lane closing for DAC 9 of 16. Once the bylaw is enacted, the city will draft the required servicing and zoning agreements for execution. As well, Qualico will need to execute their hydro easements. And once all of these mentioned steps have been completed, legal services will release all legal documents relating to the lane closing, transfer of land for the lane and the subdivision on behalf of PP&D to their lawyers. So That's the process in a nutshell.
Okay, so I guess the disposition of council is for an update. This is the update for information,
Yes.
presumably? Okay. Councilor Chambers, you want to take the chair?
Yep.
So I'll move the public service report we've heard for information.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And
Thank you.
I'll take the chair back. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a traffic calming study on Rue du Trapeze. There is a lot of traffic that is down that road. There's the golf course that is just to the southwest. You know, not stating that it's all golf traffic, but residents are concerned with the speed that is along Rue du Trapeze. So whether it's an enforcement issue, whether additional traffic calming measures need to be considered, increased signage, things like that, I would like the public service to come back with a report that basically shows what the percentage of vehicles in that area are speeding, and then suggest what additional traffic measures can be implemented to increase road safety.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Chambers. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried. Next report.
Again, St. Albert Ward, this is in the Fort Richmond area on Dalhousie. Speed has been an issue there as well, but more so in front of, there is a daycare and nearby Dalhousie School and Acadia Junior High. So from this perspective, you know, there is signage. There is not, you know, a rapid flashing beacon or any other traffic awareness signage or what's the word I'm looking for? Lighting that would alert drivers that they are in a potential area where children are in abundance. So requesting a traffic study to be done with the idea of looking at whether it's rapid flashing beacons or some other enhanced signage to alert drivers who are filling a stop for pedestrians at this crosswalk intersection.
Okay, moved by Councilor Chambers. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary carried. And,
I'll move new consideration of a new business item at number 9.
right, moved by Councilor Mays, new business, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary carried.
Madam Clerk has a draft. This is essentially the laneway that got 55% support back at number 5. That technically fails the local improvement threshold, but we do have the right to proceed. Council can initiate a local improvement, subject to the right of the residents to overwhelm that by having 60% opposition, which we have seen in some situations, and in some situations we haven't. Given, I've looked at the actual, and thank you to Tim Austin from Assessment who talked to me about this one and how to proceed. And if you look at who's signed the petition and who hasn't on this, it really hinges on one property where I'm pretty sure they weren't able to reach the owner. So I wouldn't mind, I mean, there's certainly a majority in favor here at 55.7%. So Madam Clerk, can you read then? I'll move a motion that would be, do you want to read it out then for number 9?
I could read it out. So be it resolved that the following be recommended to the Executive Policy Committee. 1, that council be requested to initiate a local improvement pursuant to Section 408A of the City of Winnipeg Charter as follows. So the local improvement is an asphaltic concrete lane pavement at 14 feet by 5 inches. The location will be approximately 14 feet wide, 5 inches thick, on the east to west lane in the block bounded by Dunraven Avenue, Blenheim Avenue, St. Mary's Road, and Overton Street. 2, that the process is outlined in the City of Winnipeg Charter with respect to a local improvement initiated by the city be undertaken. And 3, that the proper officers of the city be authorized to do all things necessary to implement the intent of the foregoing.
Right, so this is still using this is not the city of Winnipeg's going to pay for the local improvement. This is still the,
It will still be following the local improvement procedure. So it'll be initiated by council, but it would still be going to, through the process. The reason it's going to Executive Policy Committee is because they are the committee with jurisdiction over taxation and local improvements.
okay, so just for clarity, the intent here is not to have the city pay for it at any greater extent than the lane we just approved in Councillor Allard's ward, the 2 lanes, actually. It's the cost-sharing agreement that we've had for about 12 years now, 11 years for gravel back lanes. So if the wording, well, the plural. No problem. Okay, so moved, and if there's a technical issue, we can.
Just discussion, question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that once council initiated, there is the same, it's basically starting the process over. There's still the same appeal period that comes after this?
Yeah, we did this at West Fernwood, and the residents didn't shoot it down. Councillor Gillingham tried it somewhere in his ward, and the residents did shoot it down. And most famously, we tried this on Victoria Crescent for the sewer pipe, and it created a hell of a mess and was shot down by the residents. So this is essentially trying to recreate what happened at West Fernwood, and if the residents don't want it, they all have to get 60% together to shoot it down.
Okay. I recall a counterexample where adjacent to Christmas School, the school wanted local improvement, but on the other side were residents who did not want the local improvement. And so I think Councillor Vandal, council initiated the canceling of the local improvement, and I think that's where it ended. Anyway.
Just to give you a heads up, the individual that wrote the report from taxation is available to answer questions if you.
I think, I don't know.
Oh, okay, 30 seconds, and so Tim is on the line somehow? Tanis, Tanis is here. Yeah, 30-second question then for Tanis.
So would you like to come to the podium? The lectern? Thank you, Councillor Chambers.
Or, yeah, this will take 30 seconds. He said, hopefully. The clerk has been briefed on the correct pronunciation of asphaltic and has agreed to follow our lead, Councillor Allard.
Okay.
Incremental change. Okay, so the question, Dennis, is, but the wording here is not meant to suggest council pays 100%. The wording is meant to suggest, like other gravel back lane local improvements, city and residents split the cost of the paving, and the city covers the cost of the sewer enhancements.
Right,
Right?
it becomes, it's the same as a local improvement. You're just initiating it, and then the citizens have the opportunity to object, just as you guys have been discussing it. If what you've said is all correct, so they can object, and they have to have greater than 60% objection in order to defeat it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so moved.
So moved by Councillor Mays. Madam Clerk, we're in order.
All right. All right.
We're in order?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor to Councillor Mays' motion?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. And into public hearing?
Now we're into public hearings.
Can
Okay.
you do a 5-minute bio?
5-minute recess?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I guess should use this gavel. Welcome back. So we're in the public hearing portion of this meeting. Madam Clerk, if you could lead us through the process.
All right, I'm going to reintroduce us to the item. So we have item 1 is a zoning agreement amendment at 419 St. Anne's Road under file ZAA 11 of 2024. Please note additional communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the community or of the committee. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. So we'll give it to the planner to give their overview.
Sure, thank you. So the subject property is located on the east side of St. Anne's Road at the northeast corner of the intersection with Ustick Avenue East in the Lavely neighborhood of the St. Patel ward. The subject site is 6,158 square feet and currently occupied by a single-story commercial building with an accessory parking area at the rear of the site. Vehicle access is taken via the approach from Ustick Avenue East, and the property is located along the St. Anne's Road Urban Mixed-Use Corridor under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy 2.0 and is zoned C1 Commercial Neighborhood. The applicant is proposing to discharge the existing zoning agreement caveated on title when the site was rezoned to C1 in 1976. The current zoning agreement permits a number of very specific uses that are no longer referenced in the current zoning bylaw. At present, what identified in the application that no changes are proposed to the site or building at this time. The Urban Planning Division is recommending approval of the zoning agreement amendment. For the following reasons. The site is located along an urban mixed-use corridor, which are intended to provide a variety of commercial and residential uses in a convenient, walkable, pedestrian-oriented manner. The proposal will allow additional commercial uses to be established on site than what is currently limited under the current zoning agreement. The C1 zoning district permits small-scale commercial uses and residential uses that would remain compatible with the surrounding area with respect to building heights and setbacks. And under Complete Communities 2.0, urban mixed-use corridors have policy that speak to discouraging auto-oriented commercial uses in the C1 zoning district, such as commercial drive-through restaurant facilities. With that said, it may be possible for other auto-oriented uses to establish in the future, and for this reason, the Urban Planning Division has recommended a condition of director plan approval to remain as a zoning agreement condition. So with that, I'll conclude my introduction and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from my colleagues? Councilor Reyes?
No.
Okay.
Roll on here.
Okay, so hearing no questions, Madam Clerk?
All right, so at this time, we'll call the applicant forward. So John Winship, you're welcome to come to the microphone. You have 10 minutes for your presentation.
This will be east or west side of St. Anne's.
Yeah, like Google on your screen here, not the thing, not Oh, there you go.
Okay. Okay.
I have to buy
This works
some version of Adobe in order to export.
Good morning, or good afternoon now, councilors. Thank you. This is the Rail Community Committee. This is for the daycare. I've got a number of people watching at home who are very interested in this, so I'd like to thank the parents for their patience because they're very interested in this project. I think I'll give a brief overview. We're in the public hearing stage for a zoning agreement amendment, as stated by the public service here. It's taken us a while to get to this public hearing, even this morning, but we appreciate the opportunity to speak. The zoning agreement went in 1976. It's a very restrictive caveat that was very popular at the time right after Unicity. A lot of the former municipalities would put very restrictive caveats on new pieces of land that were coming forward. For zoning, this actually only allows like 3 land uses: a barber shop, a beauty parlor, and accessory uses to that. I believe it was a long-standing barber shop or beauty supply or something like that. Just going to skip ahead to a few slides here. I think Councillor Mays understands where this property is on the corner, northeast corner of St. Anne's Road and Ustick Avenue. It is a corridor. It's outside of Area 1 and 2 of the new PDO for mature communities. It's on a bus route, lots of transit nearby. St. Anne's Road is 2-lane roadway. That's the building there. Flanking street is Ustick Avenue.
2 lanes each way.
2 lanes each way.
yeah.
Ustick Avenue, I just want to point out, is their parking is a little bit wider at the commercial area, closer to St. Anne's Road. So there's a sidewalk and the road is wider. It's 50 feet wide right away. And there's no restrictions of on-street parking along Ustick Avenue. Zone C2 to the north of us. C1 to the south, and directly to the south of us, I'll get into it, is actually the daycare that has purchased this property. To the east is R1, multifamily large to the west of us. I should probably just go up to, that's just the surrounding area. That's to the north of us is I think it's a dog trimming, grooming place, Zone C2. Very similar. If I was to look at these properties, they were probably zoned around the same time. In the late 70s, I'm guessing they were houses at one time that were converted to commercial. The property directly to the north of us has a driveway right onto St. Anne's Road. That's just some surrounding area. This is the daycare directly to the south. St. Anne's Daycare Nursery is directly to the south. They purchased this property with the intent of expanding the daycare. There's a great demand and need for daycare in Winnipeg, probably this area as well, from what I've been told. To the east of us is a single detached dwelling. I took this picture earlier this year in the fall, in the springtime actually. My understanding is this house went for sale at some point during the summertime. It was in transition. I'm not sure who the new property owner is, but the people I talked to then before they were relocating. Currently the C1 zoning district, it's about 6,000 square foot land corner. That's the look of the building. It's a small one-story building on the front, gravel parking in the back. It's been like that, I think, since the 70s. Looking at it from the corner, we have one pylon sign along the front there, one freestanding sign. That's looking northwest towards the property, right at the commercial area. There's some trees along the common property line, a fence. The daycare to the south is using this temporarily for parking, as well as some other local residents have been using it for parking.
Lane though, right?
There is no public lane there, not at all. We take access off of Ustick. That's directly to the north of us. They have a gravel parking lot and a chain link fence. That's the look of our building, looking northeast at it. Again, if we were to just go with the underlying C1 zoning, it would allow a multifamily, a daycare, animal hospital, kennel, restaurant, office, personal services. So C1 is not as intensive as C2 to the north of us, but these folks are just looking to have a daycare here. That's the daycare center now. They're expanding to the north, ideally across the street from them. That's the look of the property directly from Ustick. That's the entrance off of Ustick. There is no back lane. There's some trees along our common property line to the east of us. That's Ustick, as I mentioned earlier. It's a little bit wider at that section along Ustick for parking, but that would also be kind of where the vehicles would drop off the kids for the daycare, is along Ustick. There is no parking restrictions along Ustick at this location. So we're looking to discharge that caveat. They don't have any plans at this time for the site, but likely what will happen is you'll see the parking lot likely converted into something else in the back, like an outdoor play area for the kids or something like that. They didn't want to go down too far of developing plans until they had some certainty that their use would be allowed. But they have the building. They like to use it as a daycare, likely to renovate it, change it, and add a play space outdoors. But nothing has been put in paper to pen yet on that. That's more the vision, what they're looking to do. We did provide, I believe I just emailed the clerk before the public hearing, but the landowner, there might have been miscommunication between the two of us. They did have a petition signed up by about 47 people from the neighborhood. They tell me there's a need for daycare into the area. That's why they purchased this building to to expand, not relocate, but to expand their footprint of allowable kids into spaces. I'm open to any kind of questions here.
Councilor Mace?
Thank you for the presentation. Here's my question, and it's made more complicated in a sense by the fact that your client is the daycare. So the only issue I can remember coming up at that intersection in the past number of years, you go door knocking and people like literally walk you over and say, look at how terrible this intersection is. It's rutted, it's potholed, it's just complete rubble. They're right. If you look online, one of the photos of the site has like a cone in the road, like literally in the road saying, you know, this, like, to alert people to how deep the potholes are. So, I mean, your client, like, what I don't want is I approve this and then I immediately get complaints from people who, like your client, who say, well, the road is crap here, and people swerve wildly as they turn on or off, which is true, which I have done, because you're trying to avoid the potholes, and there are kids around. So, I mean, my original thinking was, just lay this over and we'll talk to Public Works to do something. I can't impose this on your client. It's not a gravel back lane in behind them, but what do you want me to do? I mean, how do you solve this? We could lay it over, but I assume your client wants to get going on this. So I feel like I'm being asked to approve an expansion of a daycare, which is great, and that will simply expand the complaints to me about the state of the road. So what is your solution to this?
Well, that's a good question. I think Winnipeg is facing an infrastructure deficit. I think more than a few people have commented on that. I think there's more than a few rough roads out there, not only this one. Probably for these landowners, you know, I can always ask them if they're interested in doing a local improvement, and now that they own, you know, both sides of the street, that would be one mechanism to do that. That's a possibility for this small section of the street. Reality of Winnipeg is there's lots of potholes on streets right now. That's just the situation we live in. I appreciate council's doing its best efforts to, you know, get funding and dollars and to improve the roadways, and continually I've worked with your office as well as other residents to make improvements to back lanes. So I know that mechanism through that. I've either helped people get local improvements or, you know, entice them to, you know, contribute towards improving back lanes. I haven't spoken to these folks about the condition of the street. They never raised it with me or indicated it was a concern for them. They probably have more than a few vehicles driving around there, not all the way down to the end, but right around there to use the daycare. You know, I'm willing to look at an option of, you know, trying to do a local improvement or something like that, but the reality is streets in Winnipeg are like that. I know the city staff are doing their best effort and councillors are repairing it, and hopefully this is on a list of a street that gets, you know, pothole filled or repaired at some point, you know, soon.
I would presume your clients would prefer not having this laid over till October 30?
Yeah.
Which is the next Real Community Committee?
I understand if that is needed. I think they were hoping to get to earlier public hearing this year because they were hoping to actually open spaces this fall for the kids.
Okay, well, I'm prepared to move that along on the, I don't think I put it in as a condition, on the understanding that your client and you and me, or some combination thereof, will try and sit down with Public Works to make sure this, it's not all of Ustick that's in rough shape, it's not the St. Anne's bit, there's no local improvement. I mean, it's just it's not the worst intersection in my ward probably, but it's really bad. Like, it's just worn away.
Yeah, it is.
So, like, I just will not sit here and be criticized, you know, help us expand the daycare so we can then phone you and criticize you for not solving the road problem that's now been exacerbated by expanding the daycare. So, they're not wrong. It's a crap intersection that with tons of, like, people do swerve. I'm not saying they're misstating it. It's just trying to get some action here. So, okay. So, all of that's my caveat.
Yeah.
On the discharge of your caveat. So, yeah, no, thank you for the presentation. I think it's all pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'll go back and talk to this has been a really good client. They've been here for a long time. They serve the community. If you look at the petition, there's lots of people in the neighborhood around there who support them. I think, yeah, they can get support and work with your office, and I'd be happy to participate in trying to fix that to make it safer for the kids and for the neighborhood and for everyone along. Not only the traveling public, but for the parents dropping kids off there. So certainly, yeah.
Yeah, because we, yeah, and I don't want, they shouldn't have to pay for it. I mean, we've done a bunch of these stub streets east of St. Anne's. We've done Berrydale. We're doing Sadler probably as we speak. Sadler has been.
Yeah, yes, just on the east of, I was just out there like a week ago.
Right.
I've been out there a bunch of times. I got a bunch of projects in the area. I know the streets and the back lanes, not as well as you do, but I know the bad ones and the really bad ones. And just east of St. Anne's on Sadler, they're redoing it right now.
Right, so it's not, this may be on, maybe this is coming to be redone soon. Anyway, okay, well, I don't want to delay a daycare. That's not really the reason I ran for public office. So I'll try and at least make, in my comments, I'll talk about trying to sit down with your client and Public Works and see if we can nail this down with the intersection.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Comments? No. Okay, Madam Clerk.
All right, I'm looking for those who are speaking in support. Look to the gallery, there's none. In opposition, and then for information. So at this time, there's no one else to speak, so we can go to questions for the public service.
So Devin, we can't put, Mr. Clark, we can't put a condition on, right, that they'll, Public Works will fix up this intersection, but I can at least note this in my comments, that this seems to be frustration of, you know, you've got a daycare complaining about the condition of the road and then wanting to expand, so something's got to give here.
Yeah, that's correct. We can't attach any servicing-related conditions on top of a zoning agreement, and that's what we're dealing with today is the zoning agreement amendment. So I think it's a matter of looking to Public Works to see where this falls in their priority repaving list or potentially exploring that local improvement option.
No, I don't want, no, we're not making the daycare pay to fix the road here. And we've just repaved a bunch of other east of St. Anne's. These are pretty short streets. Okay, so I'll note that in my comments, but there's no condition one can attach here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, what's next?
All right, John, you're welcome to come back and speak in rebuttal. Any comments made?
I think the parents and the residents and the daycare operator want to thank you, Councillor Mays, and certainly we'll work with you towards trying to resolve something at that street to make it better and safer for everyone involved. I'll certainly take my time and participate and try to move something along there. I think I'm solving one back lane at a time in St. Vital just behind you, and not as many as you, but I'm right there trying to resolve some roads for you. So more than happy to do that.
Be some good fireworks at appeals tomorrow with some lanes that have been reclassified by Public Works, but we'll come to that tomorrow. But thank you for the comments. Okay, I'm ready to roll.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
All right, so we can move forward with the motions if you're ready.
Okay, I'm looking at the script down on page 4. I'll move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary carried.
I'll move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary carried.
I'll move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process, and then we actually get to give supporting reasons, unlike the old days when we just blindly sent this stuff forward. So,
Councillor Mays, you've been heard.
it's a process, one decade at a time. Yeah, the supporting reasons are it's the expansion of a daycare. So yeah, the removal of the caveat doesn't seem to be opposed by anybody. There are reports of a petition in support that we don't, I think, have filed. But regardless, I've met the people who run the daycare. Yeah, this is a good community use. It's a good idea. My caveat is that I would want to sit down with Public Works and Mr. Wintrop and his client and see if we can have some sort of time frame to make sure that the potholed state of that intersection is, on the Ustic side, is dealt with, because it was already a problem with people swerving around to try to avoid, and now if you've got the daycare on both sides of the road and maybe people going back and forth, we really need to make sure we're not creating an accident here. So, with those supporting reasons, those are my supporting reasons for moving the recommendation.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Mays. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary carried.
I'll move that the public hearing with respect to this, with this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary carried.
All right, so please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried.
And now a 6-week, 5 to 6 week gap till the next one?
Oh, for real?